Lawsuits were happening, and by 1994, all of the sawmills shut down.
Since the 90s, these communities have been struggling to reorganize themselves in a new and different relationship with the land.
A generation ago, federal policy changes led to the end of a decades-long program of aggressive timber cutting on public forests in the Northwest. Meanwhile, private investment in local economies shrank as local timber companies sold their forests to distant owners. Combined with a century of fire suppression, many communities found themselves on the economic and ecological edge. Local citizens in places like Wallowa County, Oregon, responded by launching a movement, a network of community-based organizations working to build a restoration economy, healing the land while putting local people back to work. Wallowa County is in far northeast Oregon, a place of stunning beauty and remoteness that draws summer tourists and second homeowners. It also has a tradition as a working landscape, and the town of Enterprise and the surrounding communities have depended on the year-round economic health of ranching and logging for generations. Wallowa Resources began in the back room of a bakery in 1996 in response to a crisis. Changing federal land management priorities and lawsuits shut down public land logging in the county, and within a short period of time, the mills closed. In the intervening 2 decades, Wallowa Resources has been a catalyst for change in the county, bringing people together around a shared idea of what the local economy can look like.
Conflict around timber harvest created Wallowa Resources. In the late 80s, timber harvest was going pretty strong, and we had 3 active sawmills in the county. And in conflict between the environmental community and the natural resource producers about timber harvest, the levels of harvest, the type of harvest, the impact on the land, the benefit to the communities, all of that was, people were at odds.
The ownership in Wallowa County is about 59% federal, and most of that managed by the Forest Service. So anything they do affects us here locally. And for a long time that was economics. We had 3 sawmills, 2 shifts each, a lot of people employed, a lot of loggers, and that went away. We no longer have a sawmill. There's the obvious economic impact, but what we've also found is that it has a very key link to the social fabric of the community. People like to go to the woods, and we've seen that time and time again, and it's multi-generational. And it's not so much that I think that we're afraid of the change or afraid of the future, as it is we really kind of like our past.
We started with very small projects, like most small CBOs do. I think our budget at that time was less than $100,000, and we had 2.5 staff. And we picked some aspen restoration work, some wetland restoration work, and put people to work doing things that they know how to do well. And then we worked with the county and the county's Natural Resource Advisory Committee to be one of the first stewardship pilots in the country. We all recognized that the scale of need on the landscape, but also the scale of need in our community, meant that we needed to think bigger. We launched an idea for a large watershed restoration strategy for Wallowa County. We took a 178,000-acre watershed, divided into working groups to look at the forest conditions, the range conditions, the aquatic conditions. We did so in over about 5 years. We issued a number of timber sales and stewardship contracts, the first ones that had not been appealed for 10 or 15 years in the county. We also opened up 32 miles of native steelhead habitat by removing fish passage barriers and improving stream habitat. We dealt with noxious weeds, we did aspen restoration, we dealt with the road system, and we generated over $6 million worth of benefit to Wallowa County.
These communities are historically very culturally tied to the landscape, and so they want to find economic opportunity that continues that relationship with the landscape. It transforms that relationship.
That's about to the middle, and so then you break off the core by turning it back the other way, and you put the extractor in, and you push it in, because there's a piece of wood in there now, right? There's a core, and so then you pull it out, and you get
Wallowa Resources runs a field school for 4th through 6th graders every year in the county. Their idea is to get students interested in their landscape and see the possibilities for future work in the woods. Their hope is that some of the students remain connected to this place and someday contribute to the local resource economy.
Wallowa Resources can stimulate and be a connector. So not only education, but what's a really big piece is making those connections so that opportunities that are there for young agrarians, young agricultural producers or foresters are connected with those maybe older folks who don't have the next generation to move on to, or for those jobs that are emerging.
The challenge of workforce development is real. It's that the population that's actively engaged in forestry, everything from forest land ownership to forest management, and also in the mills, is similar to the population in agriculture. Both populations are aging, and there was a period of time during the 90s and 2000s where natural resource industries were described broadly by the public and by economic planners as dead industries.
With each of its projects, Wallowa Resources tries to show that a modern rural economy can be tied to the land responsibly. The group has an entrepreneurial focus that seeks to create markets, develop technology, and provide access to capital for projects that connect local economic benefit with long-term ecological sustainability. In the past 2 decades, the group has taken on projects in biomass and renewable energy, modernizing irrigation systems, and campground maintenance.
In order for this vision for rural communities to succeed around a stewardship economy, it's really important we figure out a way to unite urban and rural with a new vision for federal land management that is holistic, that advances our health of our federal landscapes, but also the health of these rural communities.